Hey everyone, I am Lawyer Ricciardoni. You are listening to A Taste for All Seasons. This is a cooking, cultural, and inspirational way for us to explore the world of food with the philosophy of eating with the seasons and why eating this way is so beneficial and amazing. A Taste for All Seasons podcast is now available on Spotify and Apple Podcast, and you can get all the platforms on my website, lauriericciardoni.com. We have a list of all our shows there so that you could listen to them when you have the time or you're craving some yummy kitchen inspiration. There's lots of that. The show is in conjunction with WPVM LP 103.7 FM in Asheville, North Carolina. You can go to my show page, A Taste for All Seasons, where I have a blog post every month and feature a delicious seasonal recipe. So you should definitely check it out. We will continue our journey through food with seasonal eating and all the scrumptious ways to bring colorful, healthy ingredients to your plate. Who doesn't want that? Today I'm going to share a few words about squash and some original Thanksgiving tips in the kitchen. Yep, Thanksgiving's around the corner, and I have a unique recipe for those scrumptious squashes. And we will also be having an interesting conversation with Flying Cloud Farm. So, if you are a curious cook and eater, you will want to stick around. Grab a cup of tea or coffee, get cozy, and join me on this juicy journey through food. Before I introduce you to my guest, Annie Perkinson of Flying Cloud Farm, I want to share their enchanting story. The farm's name is inspired by the name of the stagecoach that traveled Drovers Road on Route 74A, which is in North Carolina, in the mid-1800s. The Flying Cloud made a stop at historic Cheryl's Inn that Annie's great-grandparents, they didn't buy it when it was an inn, but had purchased. And in 1916, by her great-grandparents, Jim and Elizabeth McClure. Many of the family members of the 5 generations of the McClure-Clark clan live nearby and work in the area on various projects. The family has lived in Fairview for over 100 years. That's pretty extraordinary. Flying Cloud Farm is managed by Isaiah and Annie Louise Perkinson, and they produce vegetables, fruits, beautiful flowers. And all their produce grown on the farm is sold directly to all the farmers markets, to mostly, I think, the Tailgate Farmers Market, if my memory serves me. And they also have a 100-member CSA that might have expanded, I don't know. And they also have a full-service roadside stand. Brings me back to days gone by, Annie. So, hey, Annie, thanks for coming on the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So I love that story. It's like from stagecoach to farming. We never know where life's muse is going to take us. Does that story continue to get passed down? Has it changed? Has it inspired generations that are coming up to work on the farm? Tell us a little bit about that.
I think it has. I mean, it's, I guess it's sort of a living history that we live, and we do have deep roots. And I did learn a lot about gardening, especially from my grandmother, and the flowers in particular. She always had something blooming in her garden, and she always was using the flowers, in her home to decorate. And and just using what she had rather than going out and buying roses from the store. We try to use what we have. And yes, and we do share the stories, and it is an inspiration, I think, to many people.
Now, are you from Fairview? Where are you from?
I was born in London. My dad is English. My mom is from Fairview. My mom grew up here. So we moved back to Fairview when I was very little, 3 years old. So wow. I did spend most of my life here. And we grew up, my grandparents had a dairy farm and an apple orchard at that time. But it was always farming was always supported by another job. And so Isaiah and myself started a farm where it is our primary job and it is our income. So that's sort of the big difference. My parents were definitely kind of back to the land, hippies in a way, growing big garden,
I
making
love it.
homemade bread and doing a
Yes.
lot of, raising our own meat and vegetables. But my dad was a doctor that, supported the farm. So um, Isaiah and I started Flying Cloud Farm in 1999, actually.
It's
So more than 20
amazing.
years ago now.
Which is amazing that, it's like 20 years, just, fast forward, it goes by in a blink. I remember when I first moved to Asheville, a friend of mine took me to your roadside stand. And it was the first time I've been to Fairview, which is beautiful country.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really delighted that it functioned on the honor system, that you just took your
Mm-hmm.
produce, you put your money in a little box, and
Mm-hmm.
and that was it. So is has that been a success all these years?
It really is. It started out being less of a, more of a side thing, and it's really gotten to the point where it's open 7 days a week. And the first thing we do every day is we switch out the ice. We have sort of insulated compartments so we can keep things cold and stock things up and harvest what we need for that day. And we've expanded we take a lot of payments you can pay with your phone now, so Cash
Oh,
App or
okay.
Venmo, PayPal.
Technology.
A lot of people pay that way because a lot of people don't have cash, and we don't want
Sure.
that to stop them from stopping by. So it's a way for us to feed our local community, and I think that was what really started. We got into some of the markets and we were taking everything to town, and our neighbors were like, "How do we get your produce?" And so
Okay.
we started the farm stand, and now it has really become a destination for people because I think
I
they
would
know
think
that if
so.
they miss the market, they can come out and get stuff get a good selection of what we'll
Yes.
have at the farm stand. So we take
That
it. I guess our honor is that we keep it stocked every day, and we try to make sure everything is in good condition and tended regularly. And then the honor of the customer is to
Of
pay for their
course.
purchases.
Well, I don't know how anyone would not want to do that, but
Mm-hmm.
who knows? But that's a beautiful thing. So as you
Yeah,
said,
we do have the philosophy also that if somebody is hungry and they take something, that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Definitely. But
that's beautiful. So you said that you started farming in 1999, which I think it was by planting blueberry bushes and
yes.
growing on a half an acre of produce. And I know that you have two daughters who helped
Hmm.
on the farm when they were recruited. Did you have to recruit them for berry picking? Was it not just like they wanted to be there? You had to kind of lure
I
them in a
mean,
little bit.
we live, Fairview's basically the suburbs. So they went to public school, they did, sports and extracurricular activities. And so they had a regular childhood in that way. But the farm, they grew up with an agricultural lifestyle. So they understood that, when there was something that had to be done, they were willing, and they were definitely willing to help, and grew up really appreciating the food and the changing of the seasons, and noticing when a new flower was blooming, or things like that. But and yeah, I think sometimes I think it's good for kids to work. And
Absolutely. And have an understanding where their food is actually coming from,
definitely.
I think is
Yeah.
really, really important.
Hmm.
So I'm imagining you have more than a half an acre, and tell us what you grow now and how you
Yeah,
decided
we
what to
we actually
grow.
lease 20 acres now, and we don't own any of our farmland. We lease from 5 different landlords.
Okay.
One is my dad, but we have several neighbors we lease from, and then some other LLCs. And all of the land that we lease has been put into agriculture or into conservation easement, so it can't be developed. And agriculture is allowed. And all of our landlords actually get a significant tax break because if you own over 10 acres, I think, and it's in agricultural use, then your taxes are reduced to maybe a third or a fourth
All
of what they would
right.
be.
And
So
hopefully you
it's
get a big discount, being that
right.
it's,
So it's not as super expensive to rent. It's more relationships,
yes, I love it.
and kind of maintaining the fields, keeping things mowed, and keeping things looking
Yeah.
good. And
Happy and healthy.
Right.
And, speaking of blueberries, I always like to mention certain health benefits, and all the berries are what's called the dirty dozen. And I mean, you have your strawberries, which I so look forward to. I have to wait
Hmm.
now until May, June again to get them,
Yes.
but I could be patient. And really, really important that those berries are grown organically. The
Hmm.
use of pesticides, as you know, are largely to have designed to make food look prettier, not taste
Right.
better.
Hmm.
So, of course, the soil is feeding the plants, but I know that there are other important elements in successful growth. And I'm fascinated by looking at your website too, the method of planting with the cosmos.
Oh,
That to me is so intriguing, like using the moon and the stars as your advisors, and that
right.
that method has been used over the ages and now also by flying cloud farms for years. So, can you speak to that? Tell us about
Yes.
that.
Well, it's similar to the biodynamic calendar or also to the Farmer's Almanac. There are a lot of things that are based on it, but it's based on the phases of the moon and then the signs that the moon's moving through. So if it's a new moon and then it's a fertile sign, then as soon as it's not new, like the minute after it's not new, it's starting to grow. So then it's good for above ground crops. And then right after the full moon, it's starting to wane, and so then it's good for below ground crops. And basically, there's the best days for pruning. There's the best days for fertilizing, for you know pruning to destroy growth or pruning to promote growth. And basically, we use it kind of as a guide. It's not like,
Sure.
it decides everything for us. There's
Of
many factors
course.
like
Of
weather
course.
and labor and things like that. But it's a decision making tool for one thing, because farming is very overwhelming as far as like the list of things to do. There's sort of like not an end. And so
Yes.
sometimes just, for example, like the good pruning days in February, we will devote to pruning the blueberries, and we'll just spend 3 days pruning all the blueberries. Or, in the greenhouse, we have control over the environment. So in the spring, when we're starting our seeds, we
Yeah.
can say, oh, we'll just start these on the fertile days. So there's the best days and there's also good days. So it's kind of it has a lot of, you know, variation in the ways you can use it.
Well, there's an ebb and flow to nature, right? It's not any one thing and the same all the
No.
time. And also, my understanding is also, cover crops and like why
Yes.
tell us why that's so important. I mean, I know that
Yes.
it does slow down erosion, improve
Mhm.
soil health, and also there are different what are some of the good cover crops to use? Does it depend on what you're growing?
Yes.
Is there just one cover crop for
Mm.
everything?
No, so we rotate our cash crops, which are the crops we're harvesting to sell, and we rotate our cover crops. And the cover crops are grown to add some of them add nitrogen to the soil. Some of them add organic matter. All of them add organic matter. A lot of them is for weed suppression, things like that. So we actually will often choose our cover crop based on the cash crop we'll plan on planting there after the cover crop. So this time of year, we're planting things like oats, Austrian winter peas, um, tillage radish, which is basically a daikon radish that grows a big deep root, and then it freezes and kind of creates a lot of drainage and helps with soil, especially like more clay soils. So there's a lot of different reasons to use different cover crops, and they're very advantageous. And we try to cover crop everything we grow at least once a year. And often we can companion plants. And when we plant our strawberries, we plant white clover in between them, and so that is a cover crop.
I love it.
Um, yes. So,
And for pest control too, they control the pests. It's kind of an organic way
well, they
to,
attract beneficials, I think, is the way they
okay,
control
I
pests.
like
Yeah.
that. I
So they
like
attract
that.
beneficials and pollinators and things like that. So
Okay.
that's the main way.
Fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that you offer apprenticeships, Annie. What a
Mm-hmm.
great opportunity to see if a life of farming is for you, because it's certainly not for everyone, right? What
No.
does that entail? What can one expect when they apprentice for
Yes.
you? And is that an ongoing, is that something that you offer ongoingly? Do you have
Yeah.
people that stay with you that become part of your farming community?
Yes. Yes. We kind of have various ways that people work for us. We have locals that work for us, different days of the week. And then we have the apprentices generally live on the farm and commit to like a 4 to 6 month season. So they're involved, depending on what time of year they're here, but they're involved with planting the seeds, planting the crops, tending the crops, harvesting and selling. So we're basically in charge of what we grow from seed to sale. So they kind of get to see the whole picture.
Process.
And often we do have people stay either 1, 2, or even 3 years, depending on their situation. So we have some people that come just in the summer months that are like in college, and some there's a flow of people coming and going.
Again, and a beautiful education to have young people. I'm assuming it's mostly young people, the apprenticeship.
Yeah, but it's about 20 to 30 year olds.
Okay.
And then we
All
more
right.
of our local workforce are 30, and then we have a couple like people in their mid 50s that help with the farm stand and stuff like that. So it's
Well,
a variety of ages.
and what a fun thing to do. I mean, that's, the end of the day to do that kind of work to me would be extremely satisfying.
Yep.
So, I think it's one thing to say that we want to live a more eco-conscious lifestyle, and quite another to actually do it. So, as a farmer who uses organic principles, any suggestions how to implement if someone wanted to start even, a small garden or just living a little bit more green in our everyday life?
Mm-hmm.
What would you
Mm-hmm.
say?
Well, I think buying local food is really important, as I'm sure you
Yes.
think it is.
Yes.
And I think just growing some things that you can harvest and eat, especially things that grow, that you kind of want to be able to pick, like, and just use that day. Like cherry tomatoes are a really good starter plant to grow. Growing your own herbs is a nice way to kind of start growing things. I guess, there's lots of resources to learn how and lots of ways to do it.
Of
And the
course.
raised beds, are helpful for people if they have a small space and they want to plant really intensively. And then also, I think community gardens, getting involved in like Gardens That Give and different community gardens around the area can be a good way to just kind of get your hands dirty and start
Yes.
watching the process.
Do tomatoes need cover crops?
Everything benefits from cover crops, I think. And
Okay.
yes, we do. I mean, if you grow, a lot of people, you can grow tomatoes in a pot and
Sure.
that's fine. But they benefit from it for sure.
Do you
Yeah.
think that I would think it makes the food taste better in a way because you're using whether like white
Yeah.
clover or different
Yeah.
peas or there's just so many elements that have a very specific flavor profile. Do you
Yeah.
do you think it changes the way
I don't
food
know if the cover
tastes?
crop changes the way the food tastes, but I do think that local food, that does taste better. And we're kind of, I mean, we tend our crops as much as we can, but we mainly depend on the weather as far as like irrigating and things like
Yeah.
that. And sometimes we feel like if the crops have to like try a little, like struggle a little harder, like they're a little bit less pampered, then they actually have a higher nutrition level, or they're like stronger flavor. We're not trying to sell perfect food because, as you said,
No, organic food
using the
is not.
GMOs and things like that. So we want to sell really good, high quality food, and we don't want to
Yes.
waste anything. So we definitely donate anything we can't sell. We donate to a few different local groups. And we also, everybody on our crew eats a lot of our home use vegetables. So yeah.
And you think when you go to the supermarkets and everything's like lined up perfectly, but are sprayed with pesticides and such. Again, it's to make food look pretty. I love when I see the little bugs, on the leaves of my beet greens or something like that. I
Right.
don't know. There's something about it that makes me feel like I'm eating real healthy food. And
Right.
and it tastes exponentially better for sure. So,
Right.
I always like to bring seasonal cooking in. And of course, you're a seasonal farmer. I mean, farming is
Mm-hmm.
seasonal. And I noticed on your website that you offer some family recipes. Some of them are really
Oh
interesting.
yeah.
What are you cooking right now? What's kind of coming down?
We're starting to eat a lot of the sweet potatoes. So I like to bake sweet potatoes and just have baked sweet potatoes on hand and then
Yes.
add them to lots of other things that we're eating. the like arugula and mustard greens are starting to come back in, and those are so great, like raw or even just like on top
Love
of a
arugula.
slice of pizza, or
Yes.
in a salad, or with a piece of ground beef or something like that. We're still enjoying the last of our tomatoes, and the winter squashes are also something that if I'm gonna roast, like I do like to roast vegetables, and sometimes I'll
Yes.
roast quite a bit, and then I'll have things to add. We can roast the okra, or roast the winter squash, or
Do you make soups with
so
the squashes, Annie?
I do like soups a lot with the squashes. I also just like roasted cubed winter squash. Um, it's delicious.
Winter squash, yeah. I mean, all the squashes. I love the yellow summer squash. It's all fantastic. And it's a little bit more starchy, the butternut squashes. But I think that we need a
Yes.
little bit more sustenance, so to speak, in the winter time, more
Mm-hmm.
comforting food, more warmer food that kind of sustains us
Right.
through the winter. So holidays, what's the holidays? They're November is going to be here, any minute, and
Oh,
Thanksgiving and
help.
holidays. I know, right? So do you have a holiday table that is just been in the family for years that you just have your staples, or tell
There
me a
are
little?
big holiday gatherings, and as the family's grown, it's definitely a more potluck style, and people, bring what they want. Everybody contributes something to the table. Truthfully, as farmers, it can be hard to get away during the season, and often we have made Thanksgiving our time to slip away to the beach with our little
Oh,
small
okay.
family,
See,
which is kind of unusual, not what you would maybe expect, but it's a way for us to have intimate family time together with them.
well, I'm
Um,
romanticizing it. It's like it's a
yeah,
Thanksgiving you're having, but of course you're working all year, and this is your
yeah,
really, been your busy time. So come
yeah,
Thanksgiving, come the holidays, it's a time for you to just kind of a little respite. So that actually makes sense.
it's true.
But you're at the markets, Annie, through up until December, through the beginning
Yeah,
of
December
December.
18th, I think, is our last market. Often we do not do the one right after Thanksgiving, which is I think is like the 27th or something. But we'll do the three markets in December. So yeah, we'll be there pretty much every Saturday until December 18th. And we keep our farm
And
stand open till around Christmas.
okay, so
So we don't do any winter markets like after Christmas.
yeah. So your
Yeah.
squashes, you have some green beans. What else in
Yes.
terms of vegetables? Any cruciferous vegetables that this time of
We
the
still have a
year?
little bit of summer squash right now. The cucumbers definitely not, but yeah, we're starting to have a lot of like curly kale and collards, and we will have cabbage and broccoli and cauliflower hopefully in the next month or so. That'll be coming along, and beets and carrots and radishes and turnips and things
Well,
like that.
something to look
So
forward to, Annie.
yeah,
Tell us how people could find you. I know you have a website. Share your website with us.
yeah. Our website is flyingcloudfarm.net. There is another Flying Cloud Farm in California that's a wedding venue,
Oh,
so you probably can
okay.
tell a difference. We also are on Instagram at Flying Cloud Farm Fairview NC, and Facebook with under Flying Cloud Farm. Yeah, and we're at the North Asheville Market every Saturday from 8 to
Yes.
12, and the River Arts District Market on Wednesdays from 3 to 6. Our farm stands open every day. It's at 1860 Charlotte Highway. So, yeah,
Beautiful.
those are some of the ways you can find us.
And I live in North Asheville, so I'm at the tailgate market every Saturday, and I'm just
Mm-hmm.
always so grateful for all of what you do, and thank you for all the hard work. And I just really enjoy talking to farmers, and to have people have an understanding of where their food is coming from, and to shop more locally. It's
Yes. Well,
it's
thank you.
it's
Thank you for promoting it.
yeah, it's more affordable than people think,
It
actually.
really is.
I
Mm-hmm.
think so. Cut
Yeah.
out the middleman, and you
Mm-hmm.
eat delicious food, support our community. So thank you for that,
Yeah.
Annie. Really
You're welcome.
appreciate you coming on. And it's been an absolute pleasure. And I
Thank
am
you so much.
sure that I will see you at the market.
Yes. Yes. Have a great day.
Thank you. You take good
Okay.
care.
You too.
Speaking of squash, a little history. Squash is one of the oldest known crops. I believe it's 10,000 years on some sites in Mexico. And because these are gourds, it makes sense that they would use them, it's a harder shell, that they would use them as containers and also utensils. But I have to say, I do the same thing. I use it as a vessel if I'm having a gathering and I want to have just a little special presentation. I will carve out some small pumpkins or squashes and pour my butternut squash soup in there, or sweet potato soup, or even a pumpkin mousse, even dessert. If you get those little small squashes, it's really beautiful. It's just a wow, festive way to present on your table. So there you have that little tidbit. And also, I love that there are so many different varieties of squash. You have your kabocha, you have your delicata, which is a little bit more delicate, and everything in between, which really gives you an opportunity to use a lot of different squashes that have a different color, textures similar, but I love mixing the different shapes, and the color just makes for a pretty plate when you're serving. And also, squash is really healthy. It is a starchy vegetable, but it has a lot of antioxidants in it, and it also has high amounts of vitamin C, which really slow down and help against cell damage. So they're really high in nutrition. They're really good for you. I've been thinking about some way to change things up a bit. So I've just been playing around, and I had this wonderful little recipe that I was experimenting with that came out really, really well. And they were squash rounds. So I cut the neck of the squash, made little squash rounds. I roasted them with a little olive oil and salt. And I added some medjool dates in there and some toasted pistachio nuts and some other ingredients as well. The whole recipe will be on my website, lauriaricciardoni.com. Came out really delicious. I served it to my friend. My friends always benefit from my experiments when they come around. And I love sharing food. That is my pleasure and my passion. And I have to say, I must admit, I never thought a salad should be on a Thanksgiving table. I used to be very adamant about that, but I've really been thinking about all the heavy, delicious food that's on our Thanksgiving table, and that it could really use an element that is just a little bit lighter. So this salad, I think, whether you love salads or you're not big on salads, I think everyone will really enjoy this. And it has a little bit of a raw element to it. There's a little crunch in there, and it has an acidic element, which is really welcome on the palate, particularly in between courses. And then I made a piquant sherry mustard vinaigrette, because I'm mixing it with some frisée, which is in season right now, and has a little bit of bitterness to it. But also I added some radicchio and endive. Again, I'm thinking color and a celebratory dish. But what I did is I added a little sweetness to it. So again, those medjool dates, some toasted pepita seeds, and I roasted some squash and added some squash to the salad. So talk about color and just a really beautiful flavor profile. It was delicious. That will be on my website as well, the full recipe and method. So I hope you got a little kitchen inspiration today, and that you will go create something maybe a little bit fresh. You could still have all those traditional dishes on your Thanksgiving table. For years and years and years, I've been making my grandmother's sauteed mushrooms with lots of garlic and black pepper and olive oil, and I will always have those on the table because it makes me think of her, and that's a lovely thing. But also to try those new dishes and add something fresh and keep ourselves a little bit more inspired in the kitchen. I would like to just take a moment and say thank you to all that listened in today, because without you, there would be no show. So thank you. I also do a monthly article in Sophia Magazine, which is right here in Asheville, North Carolina. And I do a recipe that's seasonal. Sometimes they're just sweet indulgences, sometimes savory, and a monthly article that I think you might find interesting. So there you have that. And for you Italian lovers, my new cookbook, which is out digitally right now, you can get it in Kindle format, and it's on my website, on my shop page, lawyerrichdoney.com. It is also available on Amazon, and it is gluten-free recipes, gluten-free Italian recipes for today's table. And it's a delicious book. It has a lot of my traditional recipes that I grew up with my grandmother and father growing up in an Italian family. Chicken parmigiano and homemade gnocchi, and a lot of food that I personally can no longer eat, but that I really crave. So it's a wonderful book, and we also are in the process of printing it. So that'll be out soon. I'll keep you posted on that one. I'd like to leave you with a final thought, food for thought. You don't have to cook a complicated masterpiece every time. Just cook good food and use seasonal local ingredients. And if at first it doesn't turn out the way you would have liked it to, you can try again tomorrow. Buon appetito.